Hey YouTube, Rene here once again with the continuation of this next project. Now, up to now I've been working on the bowl, and the last video I had rusticated the bowl. Unfortunately, I kind of goofed up and didn't show you the next step, which I should have showed you. I didn't show it to you guys only because I didn't think that was going to be anything of interest, but as it turns out it was, and it was actually kind of crucial. But I'll show you guys, I'll let you guys see it later on. I guess with the finished pipe, I'll explain to you what I did then. Unfortunately, was a bit, well, I'm not going to be able to show it to you because it's already done. But at any rate, let's continue with this pipe. Next step is this bit. Now, the bit itself, what I did was, as remember, it was that color. It's just white. What I did was I went ahead and I used a magic eraser on it. That white sponge that you use. It's a household cleaner. It really does work well, and as you can see, it's taken a lot of the oxidation off, but it didn't take it all off. There's still plenty there. Now, unfortunately, this bit is, while it is nice, still intact, it is chewed up really bad. And I mean, if only it wasn't that small, I would chop it off right there and just, start a new button, but I don't want to do that because I don't want to make it too short. Now, looking at it sideways, I can see that I still have a pretty good thickness of a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sand down as much as I can the teeth marks that you see there, especially this one that's really deep. I'm going to sand it down as much as I can. I'm going to fix this button. I'm going to sand down the button and just kind of like reshape it. And then if anything, I'll just use, I'll use a glue bond and just put a patch over this, and just go from there. I mean, you'll be able to see the patch, but it won't look that bad. And that's pretty much what I'm going to do. As you guys can see, I have my needle files, and I have my 400, 600, and 800 grit sandpaper. These are, not the only grits that you can use. You can use finer grits, or, I personally, as you guys know, I will not hesitate to use a harder grit on a bit or on briar. I mean, this is the steel file. How much harder can you get, right? So, let me just, I'm not going to take you through the whole step, but, while I still have a little bit of time here, let me just show you kind of how to, how to go about beginning this. So, let's start with this part, since it's the worst one. Now, the first thing that I would do here is I would, start with a 400 grit and just start sanding down pretty much the whole. Now, 400 grit is actually a pretty decent grit paper. I mean, it's not very fine, so you are going to be taking off a lot of the oxidation that's right on top of that the OxiClean actually brought up to the surface. You are going to be, buffing that out very quickly. So I guess at this point you would want to be careful. Look at that. The black is coming up. So that's why I'm telling you guys I'm not going to take you through this whole process, only because yeah, it's time consuming, and that's basically all it does. Is just it takes up the time. You just because that's all. This is what pretty much what you have to do till you get most of it off. And then what the 400 does, the 400 grit sandpaper, what this does is it leaves scratch marks on the bit. So what you want to do is you want to take off those scratch marks, and the way you do it is you use the 600 and then the 800 grit. So and I'm sorry I'm doing this off camera, but I have my rag on my lap, and you know, I keep cleaning the sandpaper, the piece of sandpaper that I'm using. And just so you know, so I can see what's going on. As you can see, it's already turning black. So you know, and basically that's the way you would go about it. Now this right here, this let's switch it around. Let me just show you what I would do here. Now this side here, these are small little teeth chatter that will more than likely you can pretty much get rid of them just by sanding. Yeah, see, they're coming off. They're coming off little by little. But when it all fails, of course, you have to start with your needle files. Now let me just show you how I would go about getting this button reshaped. Now, one of the things that I'm sorry, I keep going off camera. One of the things that I would always try to do is, because I see that I have enough thickness in this piece, you know, I'm going to go ahead and sand down as much as I can these just to, you know, save time, these teeth chatter over here on this side. So basically what you do is you start going out. One of the things, especially when using a steel file, one of the things that you don't want to do is you don't want to just do this, because then you're just going to create, you know, a sort of like a ditch, if you will. So you want to be careful. You really want to start moving, keep moving the sand, the file around, so as to kind of create an even scratch, if you will, and not just make it worse on yourself, and by creating just one gash here that you're going to have to, you know, work on afterwards. So that's kind of like the way you want to go, and make sure that now this is, of course, this is putting more scratch marks on this bit, but you're going to get rid of those scratch marks, so you won't have to worry about it. Now, I'm using force, but not really a lot of force. Just enough to do the job that I need it to do. Now, so you can see, most of that teeth chatter is pretty much gone. But see how it's scratched up? So that's when afterwards you would take your 400 grit and sand that down. What you're doing now is you're just sanding down the scratch marks, the deep scratch marks that the needle file left on the bit. And this is going to be a long video. I do apologize for that, but I just want to show you kind of a little bit of the result. As you can see, it pretty much worked. Of course, I still have a lot of work to do on these, but that's pretty much the way it goes. And you know, as far as the button, that kind of the way you do it as well. You have to be kind of careful with the button, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to get rid of the button, but you do have to sand it down. So one of the things that I do is I start, sanding down the bit, and sanding it down until I get further deeper into the thickness of the bit, hence making the button more pronounced. That way, what that does is it gives you more button to sand down, that's what you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to start sanding down the button so you can get rid of those marks. And this is pretty much the way you would do it. At least that's the way I would do it. And actually, as you can see, I don't know if you can tell, but that just from that little bit that I just did, it's actually the I don't know. I guess they're chew marks, is what they are. I mean, they're not really just somebody's just clenched on it too much, and so the clench marks are actually coming off already, just from me doing that. So, yeah, there we go. So you guys can see the button is pretty much coming along, and yeah, the chew marks are actually coming off. And so that's pretty much the way you do, the way I do a bit. And like I said, you have to just gauge yourself and your work and the way that you're going to go about essentially shaving off and restructuring the button to get all the imperfections out, all the chew marks out, and essentially create a new button and pretty much a new bit out of the existing bit that you have. So anyways, compadres, alright, well, I'm going to leave you here. Sorry, this video is way too long. As always, compadres, comadres, thank you for watching. Ivan con Dios.